today I am going to quickly chat about what you need to start up a contracting business, on a budget. How old are you going to be before you start to experience life like you want it? I want to tell you right now, whether you like it or not, there is a better way to do business. Hi everyone, welcome to the Business for Builders podcast. My name is Max Peterson, CEO at Smith & Sons Remodeling Experts here in Canada. Welcome to you if you're in podcast land, or if you are in YouTube land, welcome to you as well. Of course, a bit of housekeeping, like and subscribe, share it if you know someone who would benefit from the information. And if you're feeling it, give us a bit of love, give us a bit of a rating. Hopefully it's a nice positive rating. And be sure that, if you've got any questions or queries, you can either leave them in the comments below, or you can email me directly at max@businessforbuilders.ca. It is Help a Human Day every day. That's a good one. We should use that. Help a Human Day. Yeah. Especially in the construction business, because I know that there's always a shortage of assistance or information for general contractors who want to build a successful business. So today I am going to quickly chat about what you need to start up a contracting business, on a budget. And so, obviously we do Instagram and TikTok question and answers, Q&As, normally on a Friday afternoon, Vancouver time, which is normally, breakfast time, let's say in the Southern Hemisphere, or, Australia and New Zealand. And so, one of the common questions, we get a whole bunch of questions. Normally it's about 60 to 90 minutes on a Friday afternoon just before we quit for the week. And it's a really good time where we just jam around different subject matter. So if you're listening to this and you haven't done it already, feel free to join us usually on a Friday. And we will get down and dirty with some questions around, what it takes to own and operate a construction business. But one of the questions we get asked often is what you need to start up a contracting business, and more importantly on a budget, because normally guys and gals that are just starting out haven't got a massive amount of cash at bank to go throwing in this. And so what I'm going to share is six points. Now, this is not an exhaustive list by any means, and it certainly is my interpretation, perhaps, of what I think. But it's funny because every one of these on this list of 6 on, what you need to start up a contracting business on a budget, none of these will cost you out of pocket. So it's kind of going to be a good one to really put the pressure back on, my audience here, and talk about, well, these are the things that you need to start up a contracting business. And it's not about just going spending money, getting business cards or putting decals on your truck, or going getting a website or whatnot. What we're going to talk about is something that's going to need the utilization of your grey matter to ensure that you are really setting up that infrastructure that you understand, that's not being outsourced and not run by you, but so that you've got a really good understanding of how to set up your contracting business, which is what it's all about. So the first thing, which I've copped a little bit of grief over, mostly on TikTok, is to define your niche. Now, look, I think in the development of business, and there's, I haven't had a discussion with anyone. I've had to have a little bit of, hand-to-hand combat in the comments section on TikTok specifically about the niche side of things, or the niche philosophy. Define your niche. And there's a couple of reasons for it. The main one really being, if you are in the business of, if you're just trying to get work to run paycheck to paycheck and you're not really focusing on biz dev, then I would say, okay, maybe you don't want to define a niche. However, if you're like us and we're a franchise organization, we focus mostly on renovations and remodels. And the reason we do that is because it's a very different scope of work to, let's say, new homes or commercial or industrial, right? Or shop fitting. So, I think that the reason we talk about it a lot is because it's so important when a business owner wants to grow a business and needs to systemize that business so it can then teach new team members what their role is and what it incorporates and what it includes, as well as what their goals are and what some of their commitments might be and their obligations. So when you're doing that across multiple different industry scopes, like residential and commercial, or in residential, new homes, and say renovations and new homes, you sort of start to water down, all those different systems, because some of those systems are going to be different for those different verticals of industries within the construction business. And so I'm not saying that you have to define a niche, but if you're going to start a contracting business that you wanted to grow, then I would say absolutely define a niche. Some of the great things about, having new homes or new home construction is your niche is that it's very predictable. One of the challenges is that because of that predictable nature, your ability to make profit is diminished slightly. But the upside is they're big contracts, so that profit margin is pretty healthy. If you can win 3 or 4 jobs a year, you're probably doing okay. The upside of renovations is that, normally the profit margin or the markup percentage is definitely a lot more healthy. The downside is that the contract values might be a lot less than your new home counterparts. So, look, I think what I'm saying is just pick your medicine. Like, do you. If you want to go and do, and let's back up one more step. Are you a B? And this is where we're going to talk about, your preferred client profile. Defining your niche might also, you might have to consider are you a business-to-business operator or are you a business-to-client? So are you going to deal with, end users or homeowners, or are you going to deal with investors and other business owners that want to invest in the residential or that marketplace? So this is why defining a niche is very much an individual thing. I'm not saying that you want to, that you need to. I'm just saying if you want to develop a, post $1 million business or a couple of $1 million a year in sales, you're not going to be able to really do all that on your own. So it's going to help that you actually specifically identify what sort of work that you want to do, and that makes it easier to systemize and lead people or lead a team in the process of making sales and delivering the product. Okay, number 2, define your preferred client profile. So this is one we jam a lot around. It's kind of one that I play games with. Maybe I'm slightly disrespectful in some of the TikTok Q&As that get cut up and used as posts, but there's just, I guess consumers do what they feel they need to do. And sometimes I might say that, buyers can be liars. They're playing their cards close to their chest. They're being very coy. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that if it's okay for them to do that, then what you need to do is you need to have your systems in place to ensure that you're not talking to and worse, working for the wrong types of clients. So this is why, again, you need to give some consideration to what type of clients do I want. Please don't say to me, I want to work for clients with lots of money. There's lots of clients with lots of money who fail the attitude test that we don't do work for. And so this is why I think when you've got to consider what looks like, client attributes that you can work with. There's some clients that I will work for that some of my guys won't work for, and vice versa. It just depends on you as an individual. This is why this is not a cut and dry exhaustive list, because the guy or gal driving it, i.e. you, is going to be able to handle more stress from a certain type of client than other guys or gals. And so, that's why I'm saying you define your preferred client profile. I'm not going to say that my preferred client profile is for you. So just to be specific, our preferred client profile is probably from ages 45 or 50 up to 70, 75. They're homeowners, because that's what we specialize in, residential renovations and remodels. They might be very successful corporate folks, or they might be very successful business owners who have now retired. So it's all about really and I'm not saying that we don't talk to people who are outside that profile, but we do. Then it gets our attention, and we sort of go, okay, what are we doing to qualify? What questions are we asking? What are we looking for? What are the red flags? What makes this deal a go or a no-go? I'm not saying that it's a perfect science, but the majority of our assessment program will result in us working for our preferred client profile, because we've defined that and we've designed that. So, any kind of good business is going to be developed through design, not by default. If you're in a business right now and you've done no design work on the business infrastructure that you operate, you've got yourself a business by default. It kind of just happened to itself, and you might want to consider changing some aspects within your business, so now you're on the right track because now you're designing. Okay, the third thing there, so we've talked about define your niche, define your preferred client profile. The third thing is that you've got to define your competitive advantage. I talk about this all the time, that when I came into this ecosystem here in Canada, and I was looking around and I was drinking beer with guys in the construction world, and I was listening to what they were doing, and I was asking questions. I was asking a shit ton of questions, actually, because I had no clue, how to play the game in this country. I really had to sort of ask questions and sort of understand how the the ecosystem functioned. And, there was a lot of things that I had an understanding of what I had done for the last 20 or 25 years. And I was looking for similarities and differences. That's what I was looking for. And so one of those differences that I noticed straight away was that a lot of the guys doing residential new homes and renovations was that they were running cost plus contracts. So instantly I knew, based on my, let's say decade of, construction experience, having, or maybe not even, maybe 5 years of operating a building company, not as 20, I was about 15 years in residential. I was just working a framing business, if you like. I was a framing contractor, and I had about 15 crew at one stage. And, moving into a licensed builder, getting that credential to operate a building company, I really had to utilize that experience, and I had to come into this sector of the world and go, how am I going to create a competitive advantage? And so it became very obvious that the way we're going to do that straight off the bat was fixed price building contracts. And obviously that would come with specifications. Everything was sorted out before we went to contract. And of course we would give a completion date. All of those three things were not done comprehensively by any of the guys that I drank beer with and talked to who were involved in the construction business, running building companies, which I found encouraging because straight away I was on a vein of gold. And I thought there's a competitive advantage that I can throw out, which is going to help me close deals. And that's why it's so important. You've got to be able to separate yourself from the other builders and general contractors in your area. Make no mistake, generally speaking, right now, and it is November 2022, make no mistake that there is plenty of opportunity. I mean, in this town alone last year, according to the stats we've got from the Canadian Home Builders Association, there was something like $141 million worth of renovation work that happened in this town of, 35, 40,000 people and surrounding areas, I would imagine. So, in this town, there is no shortage of opportunity. We're about to introduce our third general contractor into this ecosystem here. And it's a pretty exciting time. So I wouldn't say you've got to develop a competitive advantage to just get by. I think if you do spend time, developing your competitive advantage and looking at what you can do differently to your competitors, I think it will just take you up a notch rather than being caught, in where the majority of the building companies really hang out. Which is what you want to do. A competitive advantage might be you get a uniform, you get, business cards. What I've got here for the folks at home is this is our Smith & Sons business card. So it has the info on the back, and it has this, it has the info on the front, I guess, and that's the back. And of course, it's got rounded corners. It's a different shape. It's a little bit smaller. It does sort of stand out. I get a lot of wow factors when I, hand that off, whether I'm doing, corporate, work, or whether I'm actually, conversing with a client. And so there's those kinds of things. And then, of course, just your ability. There was a comment on TikTok last night. It's like, it was along the lines of just showing up. And a lot of the time we've got stories back from our GCs, and I've had clients say to me, well, the fact that you guys communicated well and showed up on time, it made it kind of easy for us to make the selection. And so, that could be your competitive advantage. Set up communication systems. Make sure you're prompting yourself. Make sure you've got reminders built in. Competitive advantage doesn't necessarily mean directly client-facing. It doesn't mean something that's out there on a billboard, so to speak. It could be something that you've done operationally, internally, to make sure you come across as a very competent operator, one that communicates well, one that communicates, on time. And that could be something that actually sets you apart from your competition. So just think about it. This is why I'm saying this is what you can do. It costs you nothing but a little bit of time you can't get back again. So don't go out and do another project or do another quote until you've at least sat down and had to think about, these 6 points that I'm laying out for you today. Okay, number 4 is document your sales process. Look, honestly, I feel like, I guess if you do it long enough, you do come up with a process. It's still not documented. And because it's not documented, you're not really doing any analysis on what just happened and can we do it better. The thing is, when it's on a hard copy and it's written down in a documented, process, you might have an experience. And I do this all the time. Matter of fact, I don't think I've done, training. I have not done the same training with my general contractors when we first bring them on with their initial training as a franchise general contractor with Smith & Sons, the same. It is different every time because I analyze and I make notes on the fly as I go, and then I go back in there and I improve my presentation. And so, because of that, this is why I say document it, because what I do is I jump back into that slide on that PowerPoint. I go back into that, that document, that sales manual, that QTS explanation, or whatever the case may be, and I go, I need to bring more clarification there. Now, what I'm saying is when I say to you, document the process, I don't care if it's half a page long. Add to it. With the technology that we have, I can quickly jump into my iPhone, make some notes. I can then forward that to my own email. I can then grab that, cut and paste, and I can put it into a Google Doc. I use the Google Suite like it's going out of fashion. It's so convenient. It's across all my devices and all my, my PC and everything, my laptop. And it just, what we've got to do is we've got to come up with this seamless approach to improving our system, because when I go back to point number 3 about defining our competitive advantage, it might be that we're so systemized in both the sales process and the construction process that becomes our competitive advantage, which adds to our competence and the way that the client feels. What we're trying to do here at Smith & Sons, and you can do this as well, is focus on re-engineering the client experience. Now, part of the client experience is not just all wrapped up in construction, it's actually wrapped up in sales as well. You might think, well, the sales process, I just give them a quote, and then I, hopefully win the job, and then I give them really good service. Why don't we? It's all about re-engineering the client experience, and also it's about turning these clients into raving fans. And so, at the end of the job, we often, 50% of the clients that we bring on, we approach most of them about coming on and sharing with us their experience. And, probably, 1 out of 5 might help us out with an actual video testimonial. And if you go to smithandsons.ca, you can have a listen to some of those testimonials from clients that we've videoed that really help in our ability to give them some insight, prospective clients, some insight into what they're going to experience both in the sales process and also in the construction phase. So I think if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. If it's in your head, how do you teach somebody else? How do you develop a business? Now, if you just want to maybe do a couple $100,000 in sales and be a one-man band, then maybe you don't have to document the sales process because you don't want to grow and develop the business and make more money. And that's totally cool. Mazel tov. Go do that. Fill your boots. Not a problem. But if you want to actually have a business that is going to pay you a dividend both financially and in lifestyle, then you might want to consider documenting your sales process. All right. Number 5, clarify your marketing message. And so really this is really defined. If you get to point 5, you've done a lot of work in that points 1 through 4, then your marketing message is going to be built around all of that infrastructure, all of that design, all of that understanding. It all comes because of the work you've done. Clarifying your marketing message is a fairly straightforward operation, because you're very familiar with what it is that you just created or what you've just defined or what you've confirmed. And now you apply a little bit of empathy and now you can come up with a marketing message. But nonetheless, if you haven't done points 1 through 4, defining a marketing message is going to be like throwing mud against the wall and hopefully some shit sticks, which is a really, really bad marketing plan. And especially if you're paying money for said marketing plan, because now you're just throwing money at it, hoping it works. You might as well go down to the casino and put it all on black, right? What we want to be is we want to be more strategic. So in the designing of the marketing message, we want to constantly consult points 1 through 4. And then when we finally throw out a marketing message where we invested our hard-earned cash, we then want to look at the analytics. So it's a 2-stage play. Design it off the back of what you've done in the preparations that you've made, and then analyze the behavior of your marketplace. In some cases, we're dominating. In other cases, where we're in new areas, there's a little bit of an unknown quantity. We take what we've learned in other areas, we implement it, and for some reason, maybe it doesn't work. Now we're forced to pivot and make those adjustments on the fly, and it is incredibly frustrating, and it's very expensive in some cases, because we're throwing $70 to $100 a day at some of these Facebook campaigns, and for some reason they're not getting traction. And we don't get the luxury of really being able to go, and that's why it's not working. We have no clue. But what we have to do is make a pivot. We go, okay, let's leave the video in place, let's change the copy. Or let's leave the copy in place, let's change the video. Or let's increase the budget. In some cases, it's just because we haven't applied enough budget, which is painful, because the ROI out of Facebook today is not what it was 2 years ago. Matter of fact, it wasn't what it was 12 months ago. It is just it is becoming expensive. It's it's the ROI that you get out of Facebook now is almost prohibitive to the new guys coming in. And so, obviously with Smith & Sons, we're developing, that science around, really competent digital marketing, because we know how damn expensive to experiment and get no leads, that is the most, frustrating part of what we do. And we just understand that both Google AdWords and Facebook and Instagram are very much a moving target, and we've got to stay in the groove all the time if we are going to keep the top of funnel full for our general contractors. So you as a one-man band, you don't need as many leads as maybe what I need to produce for my entire organization. But nonetheless, it's all relative. Our conversion rates might be, if we get 100 leads, what we expect is that 50% of those 100, so 50 out of 100, are just going to end up on, kicking to the curb. They're not going to be good for anything. They're going to be tire kickers, thumb suckers, wood ducks, pretenders, all that kind of stuff. Then the remaining 50%, I would normally say that you should close 25% of those deals. But what I'm seeing is that it's more like 10%. It's more like 1/5 of those remainder that actually convert to deals. So essentially that's 10% conversion rate of the initial inquiry. So your bid to win ratio is more like 20% off the back of, the 50 that we end up talking to, but then it's really only 10% of the 100 that we got. And so, those kinds of things is what we do that are, we only benefit if we've got our marketing message right, if we've got the remainder of our business organized, and you've applied a lot of thoughtfulness and a lot of empathy in your designing, and really, I should have maybe called this, instead of what you need to start up a contracting business, what design does it take to set up your contracting business? Because there's nothing that I'm saying spend money on. It's just all your brains trust that's kicking in, and a think tank. And again, I'm big on coaching and mentoring, and LeBron needs a coach. So why don't us business operators? Of course, we need coaching, because it's this soundboarding. It's like, Max, I'm thinking about doing this. And then I go, well, that's all good, points 1 to 3. But have you thought about this as a bit of a variation? That's the kind of thing that happens in Smith & Sons day to day. Guys and gals will ring me and say, I've got this, challenge, or I'm thinking about doing this, or I'm thinking about, maybe pulling on another team member, all of this kind of, and I can ask questions. It's like, okay, so how's your operational capital look? Well, I've got 3 months worth of overheads. My overheads are about 40 grand. So I've got, 120,000 in the bank, whatever. That's the kind of, a cross-checking that we do. If you get on an aeroplane, they'll say lock doors and cross-check. And what that means is, the two stewardesses or the two air stewards will lock those external doors, and then they will go and check each other's work. That essentially is a little bit of a mentoring metaphor. I don't even know if I got that right, but you know what I'm talking about. And so it's really important. And a lot of the time, your spouse or spouse is not going to be that person. You really need someone in the industry. Matter of fact, I've got several emails to respond to that have come off the back of the Q&A we had on Friday. And so, I just know that there's a shortage of resources to help general contractors. And essentially, if you're sitting on TikTok live right now, hopefully I'm delivering value to you here and now. And of course, if you're catching this on a podcast or YouTube, you're also getting value. I have no expectation. I'm just telling my story, talking a little bit about what we do, talking about my business essentially, and what some of the benefits are to the operators that are within my ecosystem. But ultimately, take the information away and implement that shit, and really start to develop a high performance business. All right, the final thing, and this is probably this is still a no cost to you as a builder, is to know your numbers. You've got to calculate your fixed expenses. You must know what the business costs you to run. And so the reason that we want to know that, obviously, is to know how much work that we have to do, or how much do we have to bill for, to ensure that we're covering our fixed expenses or our running costs. Now, there is a formula to do this, as far as working out, okay, what if what is the formula to be able to calculate what my billables are per month? And that is all calculated off your gross profit margin. So, okay, here I go. So what you're going to, now, follow me, whether you're on YouTube podcast or whether you're on TikTok live, follow me. What you've got to do, a couple of things first. You've got to calculate what your fixed expenses are. Let's say, and I'm going to write this down so I don't cock it up. Let's say it's $15,000 a month. Now, that's a pretty cheap-ish business to run on a monthly basis. And let's say you're doing what we do. Let's say you mark up let's say you mark up your cost of goods sold, your materials and labor by 45%. That's going to create for you roughly a 31% gross profit margin. So understand the difference between markup and margin. Markup is the action, margin percentage is the outcome. So you mark up by 45%, you create a profit margin of 31%, right? So let's say for easy math that you marked up by 43%, it created a profit margin of 30%. You would then take 15,000 and you would divide that by your 30% profit margin, which would equal, I think, 45,000. So let's say your cost of doing business, your fixed expenses, your offsite costs were $15,000 a month. Your profit margin percentage after it was all said and done was 30%. You take 15,000, divide that by 30%, right? 30, and then hit the percent button, and that will equal around about 45,000. If you mark up by 45%, I think it ends up being something like 48,000, right? So what it does is that tells you what your break-even point is. No longer are you going, well, I'm not sure. What we've done is we've used your fixed expense number, we've used your profit margin number, and it automatically, I don't care whether you're on cost plus or you're on fixed price, this is what it will tell you you're at. So then if you're only billing at, if let's say that's your business and you're on 15K in fixed expenses and your profit margin is 30%, that 45,000, what if for the last 3 months you've only billed for 38,000? Then you're 21,000 in the red. The last 3 months you've underbilled by $7,000 a month. What's happening is you're digging yourself a bigger hole because you don't recognize your level of liability every month. So please write that down. That is the formula. Fixed expenses, you divide that by your profit margin percentage, and then you will come up with what you need to bill for on a monthly basis, minimum, just to break even. You're not making money at that stage. So you folks at home might make that, you might put that formula together and you might do the calculations and you might actually draw yourself a bit of a sad face because now you figured that, okay, this is not a happy place. No wonder I'm not making money. Now, a whole new podcast would be, all right, how do I, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not making money? And that's a different ballgame altogether. And I think another challenge might be for you to calculate your profit margin. So your margin percentage, but you could probably Google that. If not, send me an email, max@businessforbuilders.ca, and I'll help you out with that. I'll help you out, do a little bit of an analysis and see if we can't figure out maybe where you're doing good and where you're doing not so good. So you've got to be honest with yourself, folks, too. Don't bullshit yourself. And here's the other thing. Don't undercook yourself. Understand what your job is in your business and don't pay yourself 15 grand a year because you're basically not selling jobs for the right amount of money because you're declaring your fixed expenses at a level that is not realistic because nobody is going to do your job for $15,000 a year. You get what I'm saying? If you overcook it, you're stealing from the business. If you undercook it, you're really not, the business, you might say your business is making money, but you're only paying yourself 15 grand a year. Well, the business is not making money because if you had to employ someone to do your job, they're going to want, significantly more than that. So you need to make those adjustments. So just to recap, what we're trying to do is give you some insight on what you need to do to start up your contracting business on a budget, and this will cost you no dough. So it's really good for people that are doing it on a budget. First thing is you've got to define the niche, figure out what type of work that you want to do, define your preferred client profile, understand the type of person that you want to work for, and are you a B2B or a B2C business? The third thing there is define your competitive advantage. Figure out what you can do both internally and externally, both what the client doesn't see and what the client does see to give you and your company a competitive advantage in your area. You want to document your sales process. Like I said, start with a half-page document and you can use that to then improve the way you do business, and especially if you want to advance your business, scale up your business, grow your business, incorporate teams. That means you're now systemizing, which means potentially you can have humans come in and you can take a step back and now you just oversee, make the reporting process complete, make sure there's accountability. Number 5 is clarify your marketing message. Obviously, you've got to understand what you're doing in those first 4 points to be able to figure out, okay, what do I want to say to my, prospective clients or my marketplace? What is the messaging? Obviously, once you do deploy marketing messaging, you've got to start analyzing what's working, what's not working, what's resonating. And just in that marketing message as well, side note, you want to make it entertaining, informative, and educative. And really, it's, don't go right hooky all the time. Call us today. Don't do give value, and then ask for the business. That's a Gary V-ism. Hashtag Gary V. It really, that guy really revolutionized the way I thought about marketing has all come from that guy's influence. And then, of course, number 6 was to know your numbers. Figure out what your business costs you to run legitimately. Calculate, what your fixed expenses are. Calculate what your profit margin percentage is, and then figure out what your minimum monthly billings should be. And then if you've got, you're either going to be quite happy with yourself or a little bit disheartened perhaps. So, but yeah, be sure to reach out, max@businessforbuilders.ca, like and subscribe, hit the bell, all that kind of wonderful stuff. Share it if you know someone who might benefit. And thanks for hanging in there with me. We've been a few minutes. I'll see you on the next episode. Go build a kick-ass business. Cheers.